So before we get into all the things related to being an untoxic boss, who the heck am I, right? So let me talk a little bit about who I am, my background, and why I think I can lead this conversation. So first, I'm Jeannine Brown. I'm the founder and CEO of Everyday Lead. We are a consulting firm based in Atlanta, serving clients all over the globe with domestic operations in the US and an international and global reach. We focus on helping companies retain talent, right? That's our specialty is we believe both for the companies that you can keep high performing and high potential talent in the workplace. And we also tell our coaching clients, you don't have to leave your company. You don't have to jump ship, run down the street, go to the competitor to have a fulfilling career. It's just a few things that you might need to do to help you. And so our goal is to continue to help companies retain talent from the intern to retirement who love what they do and the companies that they work for. I am passionate about that, and part of that actually comes from my background. I think as we'll talk over the next several weeks and months, is you'll learn a little bit about my story. But I think I had a pretty great corporate career. I do believe that there was one company that I worked for that I left too soon. And I left without enough conversation about the possibilities and and my particular future at the company. And so I know that it is possible to stay at your employer. But I also know that we got some bad actors in companies, and we want to make sure that we help them untoxify their leadership style so that we can retain talent. My background is actually I'm an accountant by trade. I went to school at Alabama State where I earned my bachelor's degree in business administration with a focus in accounting. I have a master's of business administration from Georgia State University, where I was in one of their executive MBA programs. And over the last 20 years, I have been a hiring manager, both on the corporate side as well as a business owner. I love people. I love working with people. I actually love helping people see their potential and the ability that they have, right? Helping them identify their talents and showing them where their superpowers lie so that they can have more confidence and do great work. And I believe that leaders are in the business of making geniuses and making people smarter. And that's why this topic is so important for me. I've worked in state government. I've worked in Big Four public accounting at Deloitte, and I've been a tax director in the industry. So I've done all sorts of things with the cerebral side. And this time I get to bring the cerebral and the heart work that I love to Everyday Lead, and where we help companies and we work with their talent, and we provide workshops, executive coaching, and strategies through the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So again, welcome to this first episode of the Untoxic Boss series. In today's episode, we're going to take a deep dive into the essence of psychological safety in the workforce, where you place your trust and openness and collaboration can thrive. I believe, every individual can feel valued and heard at work. And whether you're an experienced leader, or you're just stepping into leadership, or you have aspirations to lead people, this episode is going to be key to helping you unlock the secrets of creating an environment that fosters psychological safety through the lens of inclusion. And I believe that high-performing teams must be diverse, right? All sorts of backgrounds, experiences, and expertise. And some of that is visible and some of that is unseen. I think high-performing teams must be inclusive, and they also must be free from bias, right? So we keep all that personal foolishness that our brain informs us, because if we have a brain, we do have biases. But we try to free ourselves and our teams from some of those ideologies and biases that don't serve us well, right? Those negative biases. And the team must be psychologically safe. So again, a high-performing team must be diverse, inclusive, free from bias, and psychologically safe. And whose responsibility is it? to create a psychologically safe culture or workplace? That's the question, right? Whose responsibility is it to create that? And I want to say it's yours. It's mine. It's all of our responsibility to create a high performing workplace, a culture and a team that is psychologically safe. It's all of our responsibility to do that. And so why this topic and why now in this culture? Because if you pull out your phone, pull your device out, pull out your phone, and hopefully it's working better than mine has been over the last couple of days. But if you pull out your phone, one thing that you can do is go to your, I didn't want to say Google, but go to Google or whatever browser you use to search, Safari, Google, Bing, whatever is out there that you feel comfortable with. And I want you to type in this phrase, my boss is, or my manager is, or maybe even my company is. And tell me what you see. Go and just type in the web browser and just say, let me know what you see. What word, what's one of the first 2 or 3 words that comes up when you type that in? I know what the word is. I want to see if you know. You know, if you're in the chat and you're typing in words like toxic, a micromanager, is making me sick, is gaslighting me. Thank you, Shakira, for typing that. Right. This is craziness, right? My manager is a micromanager. He's toxic. He or she, I'm sorry, no genders. They're gaslighting me. And this is why this is important to me. I have been very fortunate for the majority of my career when I was working in corporate and working in public accounting to have some great leaders. And I attribute a lot of my success to the fact that I had leaders who allowed me to be my full self at work. And that's both the girl who loves 80s and 90s hip hop, gospel music, but also who's a nerd and very cerebral and wants to get into all the intellectual conversations. And also sometimes the lazy girl who just want to hang out at the beach and have a good time. I get to bring all of her to work. And I know that a lot of us don't feel safe in our work environments. We have workplace traumas that we are dealing with where we feel that we've been betrayed, undermined, belittled in the workplace, embarrassed, don't feel safe asking questions, making mistakes. And it's interesting because we go into other professions and allow them to practice on us, right? Doctors, attorneys, but we have to come to work as, a tax executive or the HR manager and be perfect and not make mistakes. And we brought that into the workplace. And so as you saw when you did the browser search on the phrase, my boss is, why this topic is so important. And I always want to root this in some data because remember, I said this is just the beginning of this series, and we're going to be on an audio version of this in the next few weeks where you also will be able to share and talk and ask questions. But, most American workers view their bosses as toxic. And that's why that word comes up in our browser, because they're out on in their browsers trying to find solutions for dealing with the toxicity of their leadership. And Gallup does a survey every year. It's called the State of the American Manager. And it's a report that comes out. And according to their studies, 50% of Americans have left a job at some point in their lives because of a manager to get away from their manager or leader or to improve their overall life and lifestyle. So we find that these surveys tell us that people aren't leaving their jobs because they don't like the company or they don't like their profession itself. They don't like us. They don't like you. They don't like the managers that they're working for. And so we got to figure out, how can we retain talent by creating people to be the best people leaders that they can be, right? Becoming a leader worth following. And that means, and the interesting thing about becoming a leader worth following, I know several people, and it happened to me when I left Deloitte. I went to another organization, and I actually started recruiting people from my former employers. And that's when I realized, becoming a leader worth following may also mean someone will leave their company to come work with me because the experience of working with me as a leader has been so fulfilling for them that they're willing to trust me, take a leap and go somewhere else with me or because of me. And you can't do that if you're a toxic leader. You will never have that experience of people saying that you are the person they want to work with and work for if you are a toxic leader. So how many of you in the chat have considered or left a role to go work for someone else, or may have been that leader where people would leave even if it was an internal department within your company, or have people who always want to work on your engagements if you're in a consulting firm, like they're always with their hand up ready, like, hey, whatever your next project is, I want to come work for you. And if you're that kind of leader, then you're going to love this topic on psychological safety, right? Because what we're going to do is give you some tips and ideas to enhance that. If you haven't had that experience as a leader, or you've been a part of a 360 feedback, or you may have gotten some feedback and it was like people aren't comfortable, they feel intimidated by you, or any sort of language like that, we want to give you tips and ideas that's going to help you enhance your leadership style so that you are more of that leader we're following. So what are toxic traits? Okay, we're saying our boss is toxic, and I've heard this when we do this workshop for companies. I've heard partners and senior leaders and CEOs, chiefs tell me, this workforce is soft. They just, they're soft, and that's the problem. And I'm going to say that is not the problem. I think we're in a culture now where we find that people, it's more of a social culture, work culture, right? When people are looking for companies they want to work for, they want them to specifically align with their core values, but not just their core values, their lifestyle, right? How I want to be treated at work, the social aspect, right? I'm not working to live. I live, I'm not living to work. I'm working so that I can live the kind of life that I want. And I'm going to go from company to company until I find that. And we don't want to do that because we know how much it costs to train people. And so when we talk about what are some of the common traits that employees tend to associate with a toxic boss, they include micromanagement. And I think excessive micromanaging, right? You got to check in at every single moment about every single thing that you're doing, or they don't take their hands off the wheel and just give you the task. They want the task done specifically and exactly the way they would do it, right? That's what micromanaging is, right? You don't allow your staff or your employees to have freedom to be creative, freedom to design or impact a process. So those sorts of things. You're inconsistent, right? How you manage is inconsistent. How you lead your team, you might have favoritisms, right? That could be inconsistent. So I treat Shakira a particular kind of way because we went to the same college, or we're from the same country, or we might, have very similar interests. So, I give her some breaks where, I treat, Kim a totally different way, right? I'm stricter on her. And I'm tougher on her in my feedback and evaluation, right? So I'm showing unequal favoritism, lack of clear communication. That is probably one of the things I hear the most. Like, people are unsure about what you want because you're not clear. So they feel, that you're a toxic boss. Overly critical. And I know that we have people who have they come from the school of thought of, I want you to be successful, so I'm going to be harder on you. I'm going to be overly critical. And I think we are okay with criticism, and we're okay with feedback as long as it's constructive and it can help me, it's actionable and it's measurable, right? It's not ambiguous. And it's, when you're talking to me, but being overly critical, belittling people, taking advantage of us, you're having a bad day, so all of us have to have a bad day, all of that kind of foolishness. Leaders who are arrogant. And I know we have to manage, right, some of this language. So what is arrogance versus confidence? I think, when someone is confident, they want to make you feel confident too. But arrogance, they might also fall into a category of belittling. And then people who have a lack of empathy, who are not socially or emotionally aware of the fact that maybe there's something going on with you that you haven't communicated that's impacting how you work, or getting your work done. And I think leaders have to be empathetic, because when we show these toxic behaviors, it completely impacts employee morale, right? We have lower employee morale, you experience high turnover. Even in high performing, deadline driven, very talented organizations, you can experience high turnover because the culture is toxic. Hey there, this is Jeannine K. Brown, your host of the UnToxic Boss. Did you enjoy that clip? If you did, there's so much more waiting for you in the full episode. You can catch the entire conversation over on Spotify or anywhere where you listen to podcasts. Just press the link below. We're exploring some powerful topics, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. So don't forget to leave comments, reviews, and of course, if you love the show, give us a 5-star rating. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more people who need these conversations and solutions. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. Remember, don't be a jerk at work.